At least 82 people have been killed in a coal mine blast in northern China, with 9 people still missing, the country's state media has reported. Reporters learned from the scene of the gas explosion at the Liushenyu coal mine of the Tongzhou Group in Shanxi province that the accident has resulted in 82 deaths, state news agency Xinhua said.
Khan Yunis, Gaza Strip. In a corridor inside Nasser Hospital, Iman Abu Jaim sits beside her 6-year-old son, Yasser, as she watches his frail body, exhausted by illness, and tries to make sense of what has happened to him. Yasser's skin is covered in angry rashes and burn-like wounds that doctors cannot explain. His body is frail from hunger.
A metro bus caught fire on 6th Road on Saturday while travelling from Islamabad, triggering panic among passengers and forcing authorities to suspend metro bus operations temporarily. According to rescue officials, the fire erupted suddenly while the bus was on the metro track at 6th Road. Passengers reportedly broke the vehicle's windows to escape before rescue teams arrived at the scene.
The DAD has announced applications for its Schmidt Master Scholarships for Public Policy and Good Governance, PPGG, offering fully funded opportunities for international students aiming to pursue master's degrees. The programme targets graduates in social, public graduates in social and public sciences, law, economics, public policy and public administration, who are committed to strengthening democratic governance and development in their home countries. Federal Investigation Agency has sealed 2 illegal factories involved in the production of counterfeit dental products and veterinary medicines during separate raids conducted in Islamabad and Rawalpindi over the past 48 hours. The operations were carried out by the FIA's Anti-Corruption Circle on the directives of Mohsin Naqvi and FIA Director General Dr. Usman Anwar under the supervision of FIA Islamabad Zone Director Syed Shahzad Nadeem Bukhari.
US Citizenship and Immigration Services has announced a major policy shift that will require most foreign nationals seeking permanent residency in the United States to leave the country and apply for immigrant visas from abroad, significantly restricting the long-standing adjustment of status pathway. Under the new policy memorandum, applicants already living in the US on temporary visas, including students, tourists, and temporary workers, will generally be directed to complete green card processing through American consulates overseen by the United States Department of State.
Rawalpindi. No passenger was hurt after a metro bus caught fire on Saturday morning near the 6th Road stop. According to Rescue 1122, the metro bus was destroyed after it caught fire while passing the bus stop on 6th Road. It said that rescue officials rushed to the scene and brought the fire under control. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio on Saturday opened a visit to India that will include talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Looking to renew ties with a usually like-minded partner. A week after Washington's warm summit with China, Rubio, a devout Catholic, began his 4-day For Teresa's charity by visiting the headquarters of Mother Teresa's charity in the eastern city of Kolkata and praying over her tomb.
Johannesburg, South Africa, Human Rights Watch has warned of a new wave of xenophobic attacks in South Africa as anti-immigration groups intensify protests and vigilante-style actions targeting foreign nationals, including Zimbabweans. The warning came in a report released on Tuesday amid rising protests in South African cities, including Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban.
Islamabad, Pakistan, earlier this month, as Indian television channels and government leaders were celebrating the anniversary of the war against Pakistan in May 2025, one of the most influential ideologues of the political movement that Prime Minister Narendra Modi leads struck a discordant note. In an interview with an Indian news agency, Dattatreya Hosabale, General Secretary of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, RS, the mothership of the Hindu majoritarian philosophy of Hindutva that guides Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party, said New Delhi should explore dialogue with Pakistan.
SpaceX's Starship spacecraft splashed down into the Indian Ocean on Friday after the company performed a mostly successful test flight of the latest version of its enormous rocket. The voyage was not without a few glitches, but SpaceX employees shown on a live stream roared in delight, following the trial flight that comes as the firm owned by Elon Musk prepares a potentially record initial public offering. A year to go until France chooses its next president, the big question is who can save the election from being a battle of the extremes. For now, and perhaps only for now, the answer is pretty clear. It is President Emmanuel Macron's former Prime Minister, Edouard Philippe.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is running out of time to win his war against Ukraine. Amid a stalemate on the battlefield and growing troubles at home, a European intelligence chief has told CNN in the next 4 or 5 months, Putin may not be able to negotiate from a position of strength anymore. Kaupo Rosin, head of Estonia's Foreign Intelligence Service, said in an interview at the intelligence agency's headquarters in Tallinn. Quezon City, on a highway in the Ilocos Norte province earlier this month, Father Arvin Mangrubang of the Philippine Independent Church slowly drove opposite a dozen or so hulking armoured vehicles and trucks carrying United States soldiers. He felt a pit form in his throat.
Climate debates routinely cite Pakistan's grim paradox. We are among the world's countries most exposed to climate shocks, yet we have contributed little to the emissions that drive them. At recent COPs and other international forums, Pakistan has rightly called out this injustice, as well as the failure of international recognition to translate into financing at the required scale. But it would be equally inexcusable if we failed to recognise the same pattern of injustice within the country. The regions most battered by floods, heat extremes and glacial lake outburst floods are often the least responsible for high emissions lifestyles, excessive energy use, private vehicle dependence and other climate unfriendly consumption patterns.
ASK any banker in the country to name the single largest untapped commercial opportunity on their balance sheet. And the honest answer will not include corporates, nor consumers, not even mortgages. It is the roughly 5 million small and medium enterprises, SMEs, that are ostensibly bankable but sit almost entirely outside the formal credit system today. Ask the same banker why these have not been pursued, and the answer becomes more revealing. A mixture of risk language, regulatory caveats and a quiet acknowledgement that the sector is, in some fundamental way, simply too hard to read.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif on Saturday departed on a 4-day visit to China, according to the Prime Minister's office, PMO. In a post on X, the PMO said that Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar, Planning Minister Ahsan Iqbal, Information Minister Atala Tarar, IT Minister Shahza Fatima, and PM's advisor Tariq Fatimi were also accompanying the Premier on the trip.
Elon Musk's SpaceX has launched the biggest ever Starship rocket a day after its highly anticipated test flight was delayed. The uncrewed Starship V3 rocket blasted off from its launch pad in Texas just after 17:30, 22:30 GMT on Friday, days after SpaceX revealed plans for a record-breaking stock market debut.
A member of the diving team that recovered the bodies of Italian scuba divers in the Maldives has said the equipment they were found with was not optimal. Images from inside the cave where the 4 Italians were discovered earlier this week were taken by Italian media, who told Italian media the bodies were all together in one section of the cave, which he said was very deep and very challenging.
Tubio says US in constant contact with Field Marshal Munir as the latter arrives in Iran. Notes some progress made but insists more work needed. US considers Plan B with willing NATO countries over Hormuz. Iran rules out deal if US demands handover of enriched uranium. Qatar joins mediation push in coordination with US. The UAE says Iran's end programme now top concern Islamabad. Chief of Defence Forces Field Marshal Azim Munir reached Tehran on Friday as efforts to broker an interim understanding between the United States and Iran entered a decisive phase amid cautious hopes that a fragile ceasefire around the Persian Gulf could be stabilised before tensions spiral again.
The Middle East war has reshaped conditions in Pakistan's automotive market, with petrol and diesel both at over 400 per litre, up from 258 7 Sons and 275. 70 before the conflict, consumers have been forced to consider shifting to electrified vehicles. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has called for a 30% shift to electric vehicles within 5 years, a target his government says would reduce the fuel import bill by $4.5 billion annually. But questions about how that target is to be achieved and at whose expense are still to be answered in their entirety. Washington. The US Citizenship and Immigration Services announced on Friday a sweeping policy change that would require most foreigners seeking permanent residency in the United States to leave the country and apply for immigrant visas from abroad, sharply restricting the long-used adjustment of status process. In a policy memorandum, the USCIS said applicants already in the US on temporary visas, including students, tourists and temporary workers, would generally be expected to pursue green cards through consular processing overseen by the US Department of State.
Lahore. Pakistan may spend over $1 billion on cotton imports this year as domestic production has plunged to a 4-decade low, prompting Federal Minister for National Food Security and Research Rana Tanvir Hussain to assure full government support for the revival of the cotton sector during budget consultations with the Pakistan Business Forum, PBF. A PBF delegation, led by Chief Organiser Ahmad Jawad, met the minister to discuss budgetary proposals aimed at providing a level playing field for Pakistan's cotton and agriculture sectors.
Islamabad, short-term inflation measured by the Sensitive Price Index, SPI, increased by 14.47% year-on-year for the week ending May 21, mainly due to higher retail prices of perishable food items and wheat flour, according to official data released on Friday by the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics, PBS. The SPI showed a broad-based rise, indicating continued pressure on the cost of living. The increase was largely driven by sharp gains in key items, including petrol, 62.690 PC, electricity charges, 43.30 PC, wheat flour, 59.45 PC, and liquefied petroleum gas, 57.3 PC.
Opposition seeks medical treatment, visitation rights for Imran Khan. Treasury benches criticised for poor attendance in lower house. Barrister Gohar alleges suppression of dissent. Police excesses Islamabad. Leader of the opposition in the National Assembly Mahmood Khan Achakzai on Friday warned the government to meet their demands or be ready to face a complete boycott of the upcoming budget session. At least 4 people are dead and 90 others are trapped underground after carbon monoxide levels exceeded limits in a coal mine in northeast China on Friday night, according to state media. Rescue efforts are continuing at the Liu Shenyu coal mine in Changji City, Xinhua News reported. The accident happened at 9:43 p.m. local time, 9:43 a.m. ET, when 247 workers were underground. Editor's note: this story contains graphic descriptions of accusations of sexual violence, physical torture and abuse. Activists on board a humanitarian flotilla intercepted by Israeli forces on their way to Gaza say they were subjected to beatings, torture and sexual violence while in detention.
The Premier League season reaches its crescendo on Sunday, with all 10 matches kicking off simultaneously in a final act packed with jeopardy at the bottom end of the table and nearer the top in a European race tangled in permutations. The title has already been decided, and 4 Champions League places have gone to league winners Arsenal, Manchester City, Manchester United and Aston Villa.
SpaceX has launched the upgraded third version of its Starship rocket for the first time. Though the test launch did not go perfectly for Elon Musk's spaceflight company, the 407-foot rocket, the most powerful ever built, lifted off from SpaceX's company town, Starbase, Texas, at 5:30 p.m. local time. Just a few minutes later, the upper stage ship separated from the Super Heavy booster and continued on into space.
In the latest sign of these AI-heavy times, the National Transportation Safety Board temporarily removed access to its docket system after discovering that voices of pilots who were killed in a UPS plane crash last year had been recreated using AI and were circulating on the internet. NTSB is prohibited by federal law from including cockpit audio recordings in its docket system, which otherwise contains troves of data on investigations and has historically been open to the public. But the accident docket for this flight included a spectrogram file of the voice recorder. A spectrogram uses a mathematical process to turn sound signals, including low and high frequencies, into an image.